Hi, welcome if you're coming from my website or my page. And this is a 60-minute sample reading just so you can get a taste of kind of what it looks like, how much I can cover, maybe some questions you might want to ask, or just this or that. Thank you so much to this person for letting me post this publicly. That's very, very kind of them. And also, I'm pretty sure I posted a screenshot of their birth chart at the beginning. So if you want to reference that, or I also might just put it throughout. I haven't really decided yet. But yeah, that's for reference. Okay, so now for the rest of this reading, I'm just going to talk to the client, and I am just about to get into it. So I'm going to start the timer. Okay, so you said that you are about an intermediate level and that you asked about your big three and just basically how everything interacts. So I was like, okay, cool. So this is just basically like just a screenshot of kind of how all those pieces fit together. I'm pretty sure that you mentioned like you understand what Scorpio sun means, you understand kind of a little bit what the 12th house means, but you don't understand how those fit together and how their kind of work together with the rest of your chart. So that's kind of what we're going to break down. So I want to start with, I usually like starting with the rising sign. So we'll start with your Scorpio rising. You have a fat ass Scorpio stellium in your 12th house, just a fat ass Scorpio stellium in general. And your rising is part of that. So this combination is very vulnerable. And you probably feel like it can be a little bit overwhelming with the Scorpio rising combined with all that Scorpio 12th house stuff. People can be very overwhelming. I'm assuming that you might have a little bit, like, as much as you do have that Libra moon that really loves people, loves friendships, always wants to be around people, I feel like you're very cautious about meeting new people. Like maybe you feel much more comfortable knowing the people that are in your circle, the people that you've kind of already vetted almost, that kind of stuff you probably get very comfortable with and very, expressing yourself with that Libra moon in the 11th house that loves being around people, loves being around friends. But with all that Scorpio stuff happening, and especially being included in your rising, I'm assuming that you're a little bit more timid to approach new people, approach new things, like show yourself fully. Maybe even those friends that you do have, you're very cautious about what you do show to them. You maybe have a little different face for everyone, or you just kind of keep a lot of yourself to yourself. Maybe because I find with Scorpio rising and 12th house stuff as well, maybe there was some embarrassment earlier on in your life, or you just are feeling like, a lot of your stuff was always exposed. And so you now want to keep it in. You don't want everybody, knowing your stuff, digging around your stuff, like digging around yourself. You know what I mean? You don't want people spreading rumors or talking about, you with the things that you don't want them to know. You're probably very cautious about what you tell people. You do have however, you do have a Libra Mercury in the 11th house. So I feel like as much as that's very friendly, with it being, with the aspects that you have in it being two squares, it's not the healthiest. So I'm feeling like you put that up again as almost like your Libra stuff may be a little bit more protective. Like, oh, in reality, you're very scorpionic, very 12th housey, very dreamy, very deep, always searching beneath the surface. You probably have a lot of secrets, as I've mentioned. And so I'm thinking that this Libra moon and Libra Mercury is kind of a way as to filter yourself to people. Like you're very, very cautious about what you say to people, very calculated about it. And you're only going to tell as much as the other person does. And even then you might be still a little bit withholding. However, yes, having that Scorpio rising though, this is like, feeling a lot of pain. I'm assuming a big theme of your life is hiding the pain that you feel, hiding the emotional pain, hiding the trauma that you've experienced, trying to always maybe even put on a happy face, but just kind of always, being a little bit broody. Scorpio rising, especially with that Pluto and Scorpio in the first house, our class A, brooders. Always have that like face going on. However, the Scorpio rising does make you highly perceptive and highly inquisitive, and maybe even to the point that you've asked too many questions. You're always searching for the deeper truth. You're always like, you're not just okay with what people are giving you at the surface level. Because I'm wondering if, especially with that Libra moon, maybe when you were younger, what's your third house looking like? I'm pretty sure it's intercepted. Yeah, your third house is in Capricorn intercepted. So I'm feeling like you maybe didn't ask questions when you were younger. You didn't really speak up. You didn't really really just like one who kind of accepted things as they were a little bit. And you quickly learned, like through lots of betrayal probably, that people aren't telling you the truth, that people are lying, that this stuff isn't real. And that maybe changed your gears to being like, oh, now I always need to question things. Oh, now I'm always needing to be hyper aware, that kind of thing. Also, yes, with that Pluto in the first, this can be highly intimidating to people, and people can peg you as the bad guy a lot, which doesn't make any sense because you're just like, I'm just here chilling with a Libra moon. I'm just trying to make sure you're okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm okay. Like 11th house moon, like you're very much receptive to the way that your friends are and the way that people around you are feeling and how the group's feeling. But people definitely always peg you as like, oh, you're up to something or something different, or just being a little bit hesitant towards you and you're never really sure why. Or people can just be, like I said, like very intimidated by you. Like you can be a very strong presence and a very like naturally, like you command attention, you command respect. And a lot of people that don't know how to command respect, don't know how to command attention like you, can get kind of like maybe a little jealous, you know, of you and go about it in a really gross way. And so people, you may just find kind of with Pluto in the first house, a lot of people find that throughout their life, they kind of get attacked or get put into an odd position or like get seen through weird eyes throughout their life. And they're not really sure where that's coming from. People just kind of put all that stuff on you, when in reality you're probably just trying to be strong within yourself and show confidence and not really give a shit and try to just, and you're really just probably trying to be concerned with yourself, but everybody is always assuming you're up to something and you're like, I'm just trying to make everybody happy, I'm just trying to do my own thing, I'm just trying to daydream over here, I'm trying to escape over here, like I don't know why you're bringing me into this, you know, that kind of stuff. You also were probably, I find with Pluto in the first house and with that Scorpio rising, like your first introduction to life was like crazy ass shit. Like you're used to being put into ridiculous situations. You're used to being around a lot of like slightly even traumatic things going on. But I feel like because it is so well aspected, like there's a way for crazy shit to happen that like, yeah, it's kind of freaky or it's kind of like intimidating for a lot of people, but in another way it also is kind of cool that you've experienced a lot of these things. And I have a feeling that it might not be like, I mean, trauma's trauma, so what can I say? But I have a feeling that maybe like you rose from those situations, you know, like you got a lot of good, strong character building from those situations that were a little bit more intense, a little bit crazier. Like I'm just trying to think of an example. Like you could have like, where were you born? You're born in Washington Highlands. I'm assuming that's like Washington, D.C. kind of situation. So I don't know, like, I don't know too much. But I'm like, I know somebody with Pluto in the first, and like, they're just like ridiculous situations. Like the first day they were like, if they're born, like their uncle threw a gun in their lap and they were like a newborn baby and they got like hit in the face with a gun, and like he almost like was left at Disneyland and somebody else had to go and like be like, hey, you forgot your child, you know, like that kind of stuff, like weird ass shit where you're just always being put in crazy situations, willing to do ridiculous things. Just basically being forced out of your comfort zone. And then you also have Jupiter and well, also I should say like your chart ruler, which your Scorpio rising, so your chart ruler is Pluto, and your Pluto is in Scorpio in the first house. So there's so much of that Plutonic energy that really rules your life. And so this can also be somebody who lends themselves towards self-sabotage, so like self-sabotaging behaviors. And just because you always also feel like this immense weight, this immense heaviness of life, basically, that you go on about kind of holding. And so that can be a really, really heavy energy. And something that kind of lightens that up a little bit, not fully, but kind of is able to make it so that you're not always going around being this like insanely broody, dark person. Is your Jupiter in a Scorpio in the 12th house conjunct your Scorpio rising. So Jupiter conjunct the rising is a great aspect to have. It's going to make you a lot more expressive than most Scorpio risings. It's going to make you a lot more like you're really willing to go into the deep end, and you've probably put yourself in a lot of ridiculous situations and are probably around a lot of crazy, like ridiculous people, and just really wanting to live a full life. Like both Jupiter and Pluto in different ways represent represent really wanting to live life to like its fullest. Like Pluto in the first house is like so willing to dive deep and wants to feel everything and wants to experience all the underbelly and know everything, and like and not feel just really feel like they've lived life and can talk about a lot of stuff. And then Jupiter is kind of like that, like more like fun side of living life, like, oh, I'm gonna dare myself to do this, oh, I'm gonna try this, oh, if you hand me this, sure, I'll try it, why not, what's this experience like, oh, I'm curious about this, oh, I'm getting this, and I'm going here and I'm traveling there, so you really want to experience both sides. And so you're probably somebody that doesn't really say no to much, especially as a Libra moon. You're probably somebody who is just like more willing to try and go down that path because fuck it. Why not? If somebody else is by my side, sure, and then however, though, your Jupiter is not in your first house. So with Jupiter in the first house, you would be like putting it out there consciously. Like you're kind of a little bit conscious about that Pluto in the first house that you're putting out. Like you're maybe wanting to give an air of mystery sometimes, you're wanting to respect and that kind of stuff. But with Jupiter in the 12th house, it kind of feels like you're not really sure where it's coming from. Like you might just, when you're around people, get these really random weird bursts of energy and willingness to try stuff and do things or whatnot. That you don't really feel, and you don't really know where it's coming from, and you don't really have as much control over it. Also, with Jupiter in the 12th house, especially with that Scorpio rising, I think it makes sense because Scorpio rising, Pluto in the first house, knows a lot of pain and knows a lot of things being, ripped away from them, especially loss. It's probably pretty prevalent in your life. And so with that being your first house, with that being the very first thing that you're exposed to, if you think about the way that you kind of go about the houses, they kind of go in the order of development in a lot of ways. And so if you first know this, it's first is pain and hardships and stuff. You go throughout all of your houses and you're still struggling, and then the 12th house Jupiter is kind of like this little weird last second swoops in to save you guardian angel that comes sometimes like just right before it's like too little too late, like just the moment before then something or someone kind of comes in and swoops in and saves you. However, that's not something that it doesn't feel as concrete as that. You know what I mean? Like the way I'm describing it sounds like, oh yeah, of course somebody's just going to come in and sing at the last second, but it's not as casual as that. It's in your 12th house, it's in your subconscious. We can't feel it, we can't touch it, so it's hard to really know and feel that. People with Jupiter in the 12th house can kind of feel like they don't have much luck, they don't have much stuff just being haphazardly given to them. It's very karmic and it feels very much out of their control. Like if we take something like very simple, like kind of more tactical, like Jupiter in the second house, people Jupiter in the second house are like, oh, I try to get money and I get a lot of money, and then I get more money, and I'm really lucky with gambling, and so I just have to go out and try to get money and I'll get some. You can't just go out and try to fucking 12th house, you can't just go out and try to subconscious, that doesn't make any sense. You can't travel to the other world. So it's not something as tactile that you can try to act upon your Jupiter and get luck. It feels it is very much out of your control. And so also with all that 12th house stuff included, and just in general your chart, that can lead to a lot of depression or a lot of unmotivated feelings possibly, or just that you're just unlucky and that life isn't fair. Like I feel like life isn't fair is something that you knew from a very young age. Let me see. Also, I'm assuming that yes. Escapism. Escapism is a big thing with Jupiter in the 12th house and just having that 12th house stellium in general. However, with it being in Scorpio, you might be a little bit more cautious to kind of escape into things, or you just might, your escaping might be so much more emotional, and it may be so much more like, I feel like with the addictive tendencies, you might know that with a fixed sign in your 12th house, it's like once you start something, you just want to keep going like deeper and deeper and deeper, and you want to get to the final depth of hell you can with whatever it is you're doing. This can cause obsessions, you know, this can cause like once you latch onto something, you don't really want to do or focus on anything else. And especially with your sun and your Venus also being in the 12th house, like you have a lot of like positive planets in the 12th house. So you get a lot of good stuff from going inside your head, from escaping, from being in your subconscious, acting upon that creative side, learning about spiritual stuff like this. Like it gives you a lot of assurity in yourself, which I don't think that's a word, but it gives you a lot of self-confidence, and it feels like you can really find yourself through those obsessive, possibly interests. I'm going to assume honestly interests because it is Venus. You do have Venus in there, and Venus does rule kind of like what we love to do, what we enjoy, and what we value. So it can very much be like you get really obsessed with one interest and like only want to do that for a long time and want to know everything about that and uncover every angle of it, you know? Um, so yes, now that we're getting more, I'm getting more into like your other 12th house stuff. So like your 12th house Scorpio sun, this holds so much power. And I feel like there's also a lot of karmic power that was kind of passed down onto you. Like maybe some odd family stuff or whatever it might be. I'm going to assume that your father wasn't really around, and I'm going to assume that you were mostly raised by your mother. And I have a feeling that you have a very you've probably very much love your mother. She probably feels more like a friend than a mom, but you probably let me make sure you just have one good aspect to your moon. So I'm assuming that your mom felt like a close friend, and she was very like open and was very what's the word, like you might have felt more like you guys were equals and it was one above the other, and that might have come from the lack of fatherly presence that you felt. I'm assuming that because you know sun in Scorpio equals cannot kind of equal like a literal or metaphorical death of the father, and then with it being in the 12th house, that's usually kind of the house of the ignored child, or the house that of feeling like, you know, you were ignored by the father, or you didn't know your father, he was a mysterious figure. And then you also have Saturn in Pisces retrograde. So that usually kind of creates an absence of like rules and restrictions being really pushed down onto you. You are more having to fend for yourself. And that speaks a lot to that moon in Libra, like your mom being more like a friend, like, let's go shopping together, like, let's buy things, you know, but like never really maybe kind of a little bit of the emotional neglect, maybe because she didn't have time, you know, because she was doing a bunch of other stuff. She was living probably a very connected, a little bit like with 11th house sun or moon. I usually find that people have parents that are very like important and have a lot of connections and are always on the phone and doing this and that, and you know what I mean, like always managing their life and trying to get higher and higher, you know. And so with that comes a little bit of emotional neglect, and I'm assuming a lack of a father a little bit. You just feel very much like your emotions were forgotten, and you have very extreme intense emotions, and maybe that's it, maybe they're too much to handle, and so you feel like you have to lock them away. Especially yes, like you hold a lot of power within those placements, you just have a lot of trouble accessing them. And so I think that a lot of this comes from hiding a lot of your true self. I'm gonna close this because I think it's making quite a bit of noise. So with this kind of invalidation of yourself, maybe you feel a little bit like the black sheep of the family. Like maybe the rest of your family talks a lot more to like your Libra moon, your Mars and Leo, kind of uppity, kind of externally focused, that kind of stuff. And maybe you're kind of the black sheep that is very like inward in a lot of ways, or artistic or something like that. And so yes, with that stuff locked away, I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself, but you do also have Leo intercepted. And so that's kind of like having a little bit of an intercepted sun as well. And you already do have a sun that's very in your subconscious. So I'm assuming that you just didn't really have the ability to be externally yourself, be confident with it, take up space. You might have even been like, this is just a little like party trick, But I find a lot of Leo interception people, a weird way to say it, they hate like getting pictures taken, like especially as a kid, like they will refuse to get their picture taken, like that kind of stuff. Like that might have very much been you already. So I find like a lot of Scorpio risings don't like getting their picture taken. So yes, and I'll describe more about an interception later, and I'm planning on talking more about it. So we'll get to that in a second. Just give me a second. Let me take a sip of water. However, okay, so however, your sun has quite a few positive aspects. So as much as it is locked away, if you can access it, whatever your sun likes to do, which is probably something in the realm of healing, or like emotionally healing, or what was your Virgo? You do have a Virgo midheaven, so even like physical healing, being a doctor, a caretaker somehow or something, is probably going to be maybe something that you feel very natural at, or maybe your job, especially with that. Now I'm thinking like with that Libra moon too, like very cares so much for the other person. And all that 12th house stuff, like in a harsher way, you want to give yourself over to someone, and so caretaking can also do that. Being a caretaker for someone, you want to give yourself over to someone and help somebody more in need than you, which, I mean, you need to get that confidence going. You need to feel comfortable with yourself. So anyways, but yes, using that kind of scorpionic stuff in your career, or it could be like maybe you're super good at analyzing things, like maybe even a little bit of a detective kind of vibe, could also be something with that Scorpio sextiling that Virgo midheaven. And with your sun trining Saturn, I think that this shows that you're being very cautious about how much you give into your 12th house stuff, being very cautious about how much you let yourself go into those other worlds. You're probably always trying to keep yourself kind of reined in, like don't get too emotional, don't get to this or to that, like always trying to put yourself in line, get shit done, blah, blah, blah. Like I have a strong feeling that like you're somebody that people would never expect you to have all the 12th house Scorpios, like, well, all the 12th house stuff that you have going around, like you are a Scorpio rising, but I just feel like you're always trying to pull yourself together, and you're always trying to get things done, and you're always trying to be on your shit, and you always, like, especially if people are like depending on you and stuff like that, but you're always like, a part of you is always wanting to just like go into la la land, escape into this or that, or just sit and feel your emotions for forever. But you're always like, no, I have to, Saturn especially retrograde, like I need to stay disciplined for myself, like nobody else is going to make me disciplined, nobody else is going to discipline me, so somebody has to do it, and I guess it's going to be me. Especially like your moon being in Libra, it also wants moderation. So just again, you're probably always trying to keep yourself from going too much into the 12th house. Like I'm wondering if like when you started to like dip your toe into astrology, like I feel like it's something that you can very, very much get so into, and I feel like it's something that you already have a taste for, because you probably have a natural knack for kind of like sniffing out people's personality traits, like just having a good understanding of others. Like you probably have a better understanding of others than you do of yourself. So I feel like astrology is really something that you should use to help understand yourself and explore yourself more, because I feel like you already spend a lot of time like sniffing out other people's stuff, trying to understand people, trying to give them what they want, that kind of stuff. So I feel like you should really use like astrology as like inner searching, not that you have to do anything or blah blah blah. I'm just saying pay attention to yourself more, give yourself more what's that word, like justification, I guess. I don't think that's the word I'm looking for. Anyways, so yes, I wanted to quickly go into your Venus retrograde Scorpio, which is conjunct your sun. I'm not going to get to everything I want to, which is annoying. Yes, your Venus retrograde and Scorpio conjunct your sun. This is like, again, hiding your true feelings of love, not being made to feel as beautiful as you really are. Maybe you didn't get a lot of the compliments that you deserved, or just nobody, just love always had to be hidden. Like if somebody, like maybe you had some, like I'm thinking also with that like Scorpio 12th house, like let's see, you've got, yeah, I'm wondering if like maybe there was like you had to hide a relationship for some reason, like age, or they were a coworker, or they were somebody else that you knew's ex, and so you had to hide that relationship. You've just never gotten to walk out on the street and be with someone. You've never gotten to be like, hey, this is my boo thing and we're together. You always have to hide your feelings, you always have to hide your relationship. They always maybe even hide it from you, and so you don't realize how much somebody loves you, and they don't validate you as much as you deserve to be validated. And so, yeah, having a Venus in Scorpio in the 12th house is a really hard placement, just for that sake of you just weren't given, what's that word? Unconditional love growing up. You weren't shown that. Maybe also with Venus retrograde Scorpio, like maybe beauty was made to be seen as a competition, especially with that Libra moon. Like you're always competing to be the prettiest, maybe even within your family, or people are always pitting you up against others. Like, especially with that Scorpio rising, I'm assuming you were highly sexualized from a young age. And so you were always made to be aware that you were like wanting to be the hottest person in the room, or if somebody else was hotter, they made you know it. Just kind of like gross stuff that I feel like people would do to try to diminish how beautiful you really are, or try to put you in competition with other girls or something like that. And you do have like a very well aspected Venus, other than you're squaring your Mars. So I'm assuming in a lot of ways you're a very beautiful person, but I just feel like you deserve to be told that a lot more than you have, and you deserve to be given like love from an external person a lot more than you have. And I feel like you probably go about accepting love that you're so much above, that you're so much better than, that people should really treat you a lot better. People also could go the other way and like be maybe people that you don't like, or maybe they're a little bit weird or creepy, because you probably get creepy people sometimes too. People being obsessed with you, in very inappropriate ways, maybe in freaky ways. Yeah, that kind of stuff it can also go into. Now I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about your Mars, because your Mars is having some trouble. And also in talking to your Mars, with all that 12th house stuff, you can really like relaxing, really like not doing much, especially with the Libra moon and Libra Mercury. Like you enjoy your pleasures, like all that kind of stuff, you want to get into it. And something that is definitely adding to that is your Lilith and Taurus in the 6th house. This combination is like notoriously lazy, and I'm sorry, I don't like using that word, but you really enjoy soaking in your pleasures. And again, I think that I hit the nail on the head when I said like your mom bought you things, or your family bought you things instead of taking care of you. And so now the only way that you know how to handle problems in your life, or handle situations, or deal with emotions or like handle emotions that you don't want to deal with, is just by buying things. It's just by spending money on like self-care. Oh my God. And you're always like, it's self-care, so I can spend $100 on this face mask. It's fine. It's self-care. But it's not the 12th house self-care you want. 12th house self-care is free. Okay. That's like the whole point of it. Like it's meditation, it's yoga, it's astrology, spirituality, it's just introspection in general. So any money that you're spending on healthcare or on self-care is the 6th house self-care. That shit costs money. That shit's overpriced. That shit is duping you. But that's probably what you enjoy indulging in. And there can be a real stubbornness and unmovableness with you. And so I also, this kind of going off into a different topic, but I was thinking about all the Scorpio stuff and just all the fixed signs that you have. But with that stubbornness in you, you can have a lot of trouble getting out of those things. Like when you're in emotion, you're stuck in it. When you like something, that's the only thing that you like and care about. All those kinds of things. But yeah, not doing anything is probably your favorite thing. Enjoying the pleasures, soft things, luxurious things. This can also cause somebody that's like pretty messy, that kind of rejects a lot of normal hygiene. hygiene standards and stuff like that. And especially with that 12th house, I feel like that kind of talks to that. Like Lilith in the 6th house, I feel like can translate a lot like 12th house stuff, because it's like 12th house is like, why do I care what I look like? Why do I care about this physical stuff? Like none of that matters. Like it's about what's in here, you know, it's about what's in here. And then the 6th house stuff is always like, 6th house Lilith is always like rebelling. It's always like, fuck this house. So with it being like, fuck this house, you're just like, yeah, fuck this house. Who gives a shit about this external stuff? Well, I'm so confused and all my stuff is a mess and I never know where anything is. And yes. Let me see here. You can also, yeah, be very fearful, fear of the unknown. I feel like Lilith in Taurus likes to stick to its comfort zone. And so anything new can be really scary for you. And I feel like maybe that's also where some of your self-sabotaging behaviors come from, is that like you'd rather avoid doing something in a different way or going after somebody new or someone, you know, different than the past people or whatever it may be. Like Scorpio has a habit of like repeating, kind of picking scabs and repeating past traumas. And I feel like that comes from a lot of, again, not wanting to go outside their comfort zone, not wanting to go outside something new. Like if something that you're experiencing is bad, you'd probably rather sit in that bad thing, because at least it's the bad that you know and you're comfortable with and you're adjusted to. What's out there is new bad stuff that you don't know, that you'll have to learn, have to figure out, that there can be some contentment within that and some not wanting to push yourself more. And with that 12th house sun, I feel like you are forgotten and nobody else is pushing you. So you can very much, again, like sit into those things, sit into those bad habits. But you really have to get yourself out of those things. Even if it's just like, I feel like even if it's just meaning that you kind of do nothing, or like not nothing, but kind of meditate, I feel like would be very good for you, which is something that I never recommend to anybody, but I feel like it's really important for you to kind of sort yourself out, give yourself time to understand yourself and process yourself, and like give yourself the focus, because you're so other focused. You're so just like letting other people have every piece of you all the time, that meditating will just let you have time with yourself that nobody can kind of interrupt or get in the way of. So something like that I feel like is very important. And with that Lilith and Taurus, like you're very good at like centering yourself and getting comfortable and relaxing, you know. So yeah. Let's go. Okay, yeah. So your Leo Mars is what I was going to talk about. So Leo Mars in the 9th house in itself is like, rah, let's go. I'm going to go do this. Like, oh my God, I know somebody with actually a Scorpio selling the 12th house and a Leo Mars. And oh my God, they are like always on the go, always doing this, always doing that. Oh my God, running here, running there. And oh my God, what's going on over there? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wah, oh my God. And so as much as you do have that energy, it's intercepted, which I mentioned that earlier on in the video I was going to talk about. But an interception is basically like I always use this like silly analogy, but an interception is you basically are given, like everybody's given a book when they're born, right? And inside the book are 12 chapters, one about each zodiac sign. And you got a book and 2 of the chapters are ripped out. The Leo and Aquarius chapters are ripped out because you have a Leo Aquarius interception. And what's pasted in instead of those 2 chapters is more information about Taurus and Scorpio, because that's for every interception, there's a double. So it's like you're missing these 2 qualities that everybody else understands, but you were not taught. But instead, to make up for those lack of qualities, you kind of double down on these other things that you really, really know and are comfortable with. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's basically what interception is. It's just basically like, it's just that feeling that like everybody knows something you don't. Everybody has these qualities that you just don't have naturally, and that doesn't make any sense. You know, that's an interception. And what you were not taught growing up is Leo Aquarius. So Leo Aquarius is like, you actually have my opposite interception, I just realized. Leo Aquarius is all about me, 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 me. Look at me, confidence. I'm gonna do this because I feel like it. I'm not afraid of being on stage. I'm not afraid of performing. I'm not afraid of dressing ridiculous. I'm not afraid of standing out. I'm not afraid of doing something different than everyone. I'm not even afraid of being the loudest person in the room. I'm not afraid of showing off. I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna do me. I don't, you know, even it can be sometimes like that part of us that doesn't have any kind of self-consciousness, like both Leo and Aquarius, because they're so not sure. Like Leo is so in itself that it's just going to do itself and doesn't realize that it's being weird and awkward sometimes. And then Aquarius is just doesn't understand how other people do things. It can't do anything other than the way it does it. So they just stand out and are kind of non-self-conscious. Whereas what you have double of is Taurus and Scorpio. And a lot of times I find that doubles help out people's charts. But I'm gonna be real, I think that yours adds a little bit more trouble because you have so much Taurus and Scorpio energy as it is. And I know you think you don't have any planets in Taurus, but having a Lilith in Taurus or Lilith in any sign, I find displays as people having, very extreme qualities of that sign. That's like Lilith. So having that double Taurus Scorpio is really just doubling down on the pleasure side of things. Like people that I know with double Taurus Scorpio, like they love indulging, giving themselves a nice bath, like all that self-care stuff I said. And then Scorpio, like diving so deep into your emotions. You really understand your emotions and other people's. You understand pain, you understand trauma, and you understand rising from that and above that, like the phoenix. But also I can find that especially Scorpio, but Taurus and Scorpio too, it can be very self-conscious. Like Scorpio always has like an ear out for everything, an eye out for what's going on. Like it's always trying to like, yes, 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 no, 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 no. What was that? What was this? What's that? What are you doing? Oh my God, you're looking at me. You know what I mean? So there can be this hyper self-consciousness to Scorpio, and Taurus a little bit too, because it is Venus. It's trying to be beautiful, it's trying to come across as charming, and that kind of stuff. And so with that, I feel like you're just never allowed to let yourself be free. You've never been allowed to let yourself be confident. You've never felt like anybody, said you were talented or just talented in general. I feel like that can also be a huge thing of that Venus retrograde kind of supports that of just, I'm never being told that your talents are worthy or, nobody nurturing them, nobody nurturing your individuality. Maybe people just don't seem to ask questions about you or don't seem to want to get to know you, or maybe you have maybe from that, like you have walls up because maybe you've had a kind of an intense life, and so you have to be cautious about what you tell people and what you show to them because it might weird them out, or it's just inappropriate, or you have different feelings that other people do and you don't want to be an outcast. You can just have a lot of trouble, standing out. People, you don't want people to comment on you. People don't want people to really see you. And so with that double Taurus Scorpio, like that just kind of adds to kind of like sometimes both of those qualities kind of want to cave up and hole up, and they can be very antisocial. And so lacking in that Leo and Aquarius, it can lack in that wanting to get out and meet new people. So I think that, again, I kind of hit the nail on the head when I said like you really care, like you really like the friendships that you already have, and you really like to nurture those and like to really be around those people and can even be a little bit codependent. But meeting new people and that kind of stuff might be a little bit of a different story and a little bit more intimidating to you, probably because a lot of your trust has been broken, it's just not trusting people immediately. So sorry, I kind of I go all over the place all the time, always. Anyway, so let's go to your intercepted Leo Mars in the 9th house. So your Mars is in Leo. So you may, when I said an interception that you don't have Leo, you're like, but it says that I have Leo and on my Mars. You absolutely do still have Leo on your Mars. I should have described this. Interceptions go about the houses. So it's like every Scorpio rising is then supposed to have Sagittarius and then Capricorn, and it kind of goes in order. But your 9th house is supposed to be ruled by, is supposed to be ruled by Leo, but it's ruled by Cancer, basically, is what's going on. So you still do have a Mars in Leo. However, that is not able to be accessed. Like you have a lot of trouble accessing that Leo Mars, have a lot of trouble validating it within yourself. Like I have a feeling okay, so I call the Leo Mars a porn star, the porn star Mars, because it's all about like, look at me, I'm sexy, like I'm fierce. Like it's just like the classic like leopard print porn star, teeny weeny bikini, like not scared that anybody's gonna see you, like wants attention, you want to be pleasured, you want to be adored, you want to be seen as sexy, like you get confidence from being sexy, and all that stuff is true, but I feel like that's more stuff that people tell you, especially with all that Scorpio stuff. I'm feeling like maybe you you just like kind of have a natural sexuality about you, especially with that Libra moon, very beautiful. And so people see you as like this like super sexual sex icon person, like, oh, they're probably so just like, maybe even got like rumors spread about you that you just were, you just fucked everyone and anyone and blah blah blah, and you just find that you just didn't relate to all that stuff. Like, people didn't understand that your sexuality is very different than they think it is. Like, you probably, with all that Scorpio stuff, like when you have sex with somebody, you give over a lot of yourself to them and you want it to be a very emotionally connected experience, but you probably wind up a lot of times not really being able to access that because it's probably hard to be very vulnerable. And so you probably find that you more often than not have a lot of more kind of surface level sex, or sex that's not as intimate as you want it to be. And the reason why I say that is because you have a lot of squares to your Mars. Your sun, your Scorpio sun is square your Mars, your Venus and your Jupiter is square your Mars. So all that Scorpio stuff in the 12th house that's going on, all that escapism, like hoogie woogie connectedness stuff that you have, is squaring this very visceral here and now, go, 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 fuck it, just do it, kind of like Mars energy. And so with that Mars intercepted also, I feel like really people sexualized you from a very, very young age. Let me see here. And let me see what I said. Yeah, like never, like very sexy and attractive, but you never get to experience it for yourself. You never validate that part of you within yourself. You just kind of get told it. So you're just kind of like, it must be true, but you maybe don't feel it, because probably to you, what feels sexy is different than what people are telling you is sexy. Yeah, just you also like need a lot of praise and attention, but you never really get it. Like, you need a lot of external reassurance to go after things and do things and feel confident enough going after someone, being confident enough to pursue things like your job or whatever it may be. And you just never really get that praise and that external confidence and reassurance that you really need. Like with Mars, like with Mars square Sun also, like that can just be also like hyperactivity. I find, like, I feel like you probably have a lot of problems where you get these weird strikes of like, oh, I need to do this. Like, I feel like a lot of times you'll be like, kind of dull and not wanting to do anything for like the whole day. And then all of a sudden at fucking 3 a.m., you wake up and you're like, I am ready to paint this whole house and I need to do it right now. And I don't know why, but divine inspiration just told me I need to paint it. And I have all these pictures for it. And we're going to do this. And it's going to be great, and then all of a sudden you've done 2 walls and now you're like, and now I'm bored of it. The divine inspiration is left and I am ready to sleep. Sun square Mars, it can be kind of hard to have a one shot, I'm going to start this, I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to complete it kind of thing. They can just get these really random bursts of inspiration and bursts of energy. And especially with the talking to your 12th house is so influenced by things that don't really make any sense. And by that, I mean, like, it's ruled by this other world, it's ruled by the subconscious. So it's like this, your subconscious it doesn't matter that it's 4 a.m. You just got this inspiration for a poem. You have to write it now, your subconscious doesn't matter that it's 4 p.m. and you need to do your homework. It doesn't want to do the homework now. It can't get itself up to it. You can't do it, and with it being in fixed signs, you're not going to do anything you don't want to do like that, so yes, being bored quickly, having trouble focusing can also be something common with all these Mars aspects. Jumping into things very strongly and quickly, probably even relationships you probably got really excited about and jumped into a lot of relationships that maybe you shouldn't have, or just somebody kind of showing you attention and they could have been using you or doing something with nefarious purposes. That's been like my new word that I've been liking using. Nefarious, nefarious, is that how? I can't even say it right. I say it's my new word that I like saying, and I can't even pronounce it properly. But yeah, like, just really, yes, just wanting to be really eager and jump into things, and you probably even, jumping into sex sooner than you feel comfortable with, or being forced to jump into sex sooner than you feel comfortable with, being pressured to, something like that can also be very common. And like I said, like, people just probably think that you don't take sex as seriously and as intimately as you do. And then with the Mars being sextiling your Libra moon, I see a lot of people with Libra moons and or Libra suns and Leo Marses. I think there's definitely, because there's like, obviously Libra is a very beautiful sign. It's ruled by Venus. But with it being sextiling to your Leo Mars, I think these two things talk about being a big people pleaser in a lot of ways. Just really feeling like you're here to be here for other people, and that's totally unfair to you, but people see you as that way sometimes. But also with that moon sextile Mars, the good thing about it is there's probably a strong positive feminine energy around you a lot. Like I said, I feel like you were mostly raised by your mother, or maybe you had a lot of sisters or something, and you feel very comfortable with like as much as like, okay, your sun is squaring your Mars. So there's that Scorpio side of you that's like very intense and wanting this intimate thing, and people putting this Leo Mars thing on you. But there's also the moon sextiling your Mars. So your moon, the inner you, the part that you really are most comfortable with, is actually very comfortable with your Mars and with the way that you are sexually. So these two things are talking very differently. But I think that the one main thing that they all are kind of saying is that you really, give yourself over to others. And with that Libra moon sextiling your Leo Mars, like, I feel like you probably get along better with, I'm so sorry. You probably get along better with a lot more feminine people, a lot more females. You probably feel a lot safer, a lot more comfortable. And you also like, as like just want people to like you. I think is a big thing that this Libra moon Leo Mars talks to, that I find in a lot of people, that like they aren't wanting to please the other person in sex, because that gives you confidence, and wanting to be the best lay that anybody's had, because that gives you confidence and makes you feel validated. And so just be careful that you're not only having sex, interesting thing to say. You're not only having sex with people just because that's what they want and because they like you. Make sure that you do some self-meditating, some self-connection, connecting to that Scorpio part of you and being like, is this really I really want? And it may be, and if it is, obviously, I mean, go and do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not at all trying to police who you are sexually, but just making sure that you center yourself, and kind of figure out if this is what your Scorpio wants as well, because your Scorpio side is a lot pickier than your Libra Leo side. So just being cautious of that. And again, like, I feel like that Libra Leo is like strong feminine energy, as I mentioned. And I feel like there is like a part of you that I feel like everybody thinks you have a lot of confidence, because you do have this Libra moon and this Leo Mars. But again, you don't get access to that Leo Mars. It's just kind of more what you externally portray. And so people probably just always trying to put your best foot forward too. I feel like that might be a Scorpio rising tactic of yours, like always seeming put together, like even when you're going insane emotionally and having a lot of troubles at home or internally or whatever it may be, like just put on a good outfit and a smile and people will think everything's okay, and you always want everybody to think that you're okay. And you probably have a lot of trouble expressing the things that you are going through. Let me see here. So yes, now we're going to, you do also have an Aquarius interception, and that's at the other side in your third house. With the third and the ninth house interception, I just feel like maybe you weren't exposed to as many people and different things as you wish you would have. And I feel like maybe that is very common, because, I mean, not common, but I feel like that also is displayed throughout your chart, because that double Taurus Scorpio, like so much of just this one kind of scorpionic 12th house-ish kind of energy. So just kind of like that Aquarius is like not feeling like you're unique. Like you were never told that you were special. You're probably told a lot that like, oh, you're just another person. You feel like you can't, which I think is that's such a Scorpio rising mentality as well. Like being like, nobody's special. I'm not special. We're just all the, gross humans and da 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 da. But I feel like with that Libra moon, like Libra moons always feel like their identity is in other people and their identity is being taken away from them and invalidated. So with that Aquarius, I feel like not being told you're special or different or unique validates that Libra moon as well, because that's being, so told that like just being told that you're, yeah, just that same thing. And with it being in the third house, you aren't probably weren't allowed to ask a lot of questions. I think I kind of mentioned this. You have your third house ruled by Capricorn. You probably had a very, stricter schooling, stricter neighborhood, and maybe you were forced to take schooling very, very seriously. Again, to always put your best foot forward with that Libra moon. Your mom was probably very into the image of things and how you look from the external. So like needing good grades or something was probably big, but she probably wasn't maybe the one to enforce it. She just, I don't know, just always made you aware of how you made her look, I think was a very big kind of overall theme of things. And with that, yeah, so you also have Saturn in the third house. So you probably were very hard on yourself academically, and maybe even didn't need anybody to come in and tell you otherwise. And you also maybe missed a lot of fun childhood experiences because you were so hard on yourself, because you also, have that 12th house stuff that is kind of like a lot of your personality feels like it's locked away and ignored. So just not feeling like you can speak for yourself, not feeling like you're able to have your own opinions about things. And you probably found out a little bit later in your teens or in your life that you do have very unique opinions and that you do have very strong thoughts towards things, but you weren't really allowed to express those much growing up, or those things weren't validated in you, or you were maybe made to feel stupider than you were, or something like that. And then I did write a little bit more about double Taurus and Scorpio. And so I just want to cover that really quick. So I think that this also talks to not being allowed to dream, like needing or feeling like you need to have a stable and set plan. Like, Taurus is kind of like, especially with sixth house in Taurus, like being told that you need to have a steady job that you clock in, you clock out, and every day you get paid a certain amount, and you know that you'll have unemployment, or not unemployment, you know that have your retirement, you know that you'll have health insurance, that kind of stuff. Like, whereas Leo and Aquarius are going to be the kind of people that are like, I don't need to do that, I'm special, I can take my chances, I think I have something different. You were never really allowed to think like that. You were always, told to think like practically. You're always told to think like, well, can you go to college for that? No, so that's dumb. Well, can you get a retirement from that? No, so that's dumb. Is that going to support a family? No, so that's dumb. Why would you spend time chasing your dreams? Kind of like they're unrealistic kind of thing. And also with Scorpio, like you seek stability so much, you seek repetitious things to make you feel comfortable, and change comes to you so much that it's like, why would you want a job that changes all the time? Like, why would you want an unsteady job? Like, that sounds freaky, like that sounds intimidating. Like, no thank you, I want something that I know is always going to be there. And that can also be with people and friendships too. You're going to seek out those much more stable, reliable companions, instead of the ones that are maybe more like, I'm gonna go crazy, I'm gonna go try things, I'm gonna go do stuff, da 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 da. Like, even though I mentioned in the beginning, like you do have a super willingness to go down that rabbit hole, that might not be something that you found a lot of enjoyment or fun in. It might have been a little bit darker, or you just might have not found that until you were a little bit older. Or yeah, like it can be that 12th house thing that kind of swoops you up at the very end, and then you're like, oh, I can enjoy myself a little bit. I normally think I'm not allowed to, I just find people with a third house interception, especially being ruled by Capricorn, oh my God, growing up fast. Like really having to grow up super fast and become emotionally mature super fast. And like all of that stuff, like with your third house being ruled in Capricorn, like really not feeling like you're allowed to have a childhood and be crazy and try things. And then when you got older, and I mean, if you did go off to school, I'm assuming you didn't, because you have an intercepted ninth house, and you have your Mars in the ninth house, and most people with Mars in the ninth house don't like traveling. But you know what? Actually, two people that I know with Mars in the ninth house did go to school, and they really like school. So I don't know. Anyways, where was I? God damn it, I lost my train of thought. Well, I've lost it. Give me 1 second. I can't remember what I was saying, but so I'm just going to keep moving on. So yes, not allowed to, yeah, like, oh, that's what I was saying. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you were so like one lane focused with that third house in Capricorn and that Saturn cusping pretty much in your third house, like so school oriented, so like rule oriented. That when you got and like so like shoving down your emotions, like crippling, you know, amounts of shoving down, that when you got older and you went into your ninth house, which is normally around like, I want to say, I think it's like 18 to 20 something, like college years basically. You realize that you were way more emotional than you let yourself be growing up. Like all that emotional stunting and all that kind of suppression of emotions really probably caught up to you when you got older and you realized how much of a Cancer, how much of, like, I'm saying Cancer because your ninth house is ruled by Cancer, but or just like how much of a Scorpio you really are and how much there is so much more depth to you that you were just kind of trying to live on top of and trying to ignore. um like, yeah, so as much as you like you feel like you need that, or you were taught to need that steady stable job, I feel like most of that comes from from like spending a lot of money. There's also something in your chart that says that you don't have the best what's the word, you're not the best at handling money or understanding your finances and stuff, because you have your second house in Sagittarius, and so second house in Sagittarius changes their mind every fucking day what they want to do. And I feel like that's really frustrating to you because you have this Virgo midheaven that wants to appear very studious, very smart, wants to just and then that Taurus sixth house, like I keep saying, you know, wants to clock in and clock out and build a good job. But yet you have this second house in Sagittarius that just cannot make up their mind on what they want to do. And it's probably really frustrating or how they want to make their money. And it's probably really frustrating because you are such a fixed person in so many ways, yet the main thing that you can't decide about is how you want to earn your money. And also with that, you have Neptune and Uranus in the second house. And Neptune and Uranus are what's called like malefic planets. So it's kind of like harsher planets to have, and they're right on top of each other in the sign of Capricorn, which is a really harsh energy, obviously. So that can cause even more money confusions. Like people with Neptune in the second house normally can only feel comfortable getting their money from something artistic, and especially with with Sagittarius being in there, like that wants to do something big picture. But with that Leo Aquarius, it's hard because you don't have the confidence to go after that big picture job that you want, that you know you can do. And so you probably kind of wind up instead bouncing from job to job. And with that Neptune in the second house, you don't really like Neptune in Capricorn is a generational influence. It's basically like the millennial influence as to why millennials don't understand adulting. Because Neptune rules disillusionment, things that you don't really fully understand, things that don't really fully make sense aren't here now. So it kind of confuses any sign that it's in. So with it in Capricorn, it really is confused over how to save money, how to adult, how to build a better future, how to be able to, like your parent, like kind of like that thing where it's like, well, my parents got to get a house in the 80s or whatever, and it was just like super cheap, and now they expect me to be able to get a house when houses are so much more fucking expensive, and just feeling so much insecurity from that, from being born into a different time, and to now that insecurity of not understanding how to build a foundation like your parents did. They had a lot of an easier time with it, I will say, but like easier time because of the year, because it was just cheaper. um, and then with that Uranus in the second house, that only adds to the chaos of changing your mind on how you want to make your money, and money coming in and coming out, and like you having a lot of money in savings, and then all of a sudden it's gone and you don't know how you spent it, but you just spent it on silly little things, and then all of a sudden you get a lot of money again and you don't really understand, and then you get fired from the job out of nowhere, and then you have no money, and then you somehow stumble upon some luck, and then you get it, and it's just like very turbulent bank account and very turbulent understanding of how to manage your finances. And the thing about the second house is that it also corresponds to self-worth. So if your self-worth is this chaotic, your self-worth is this like up and down, one day I'm here, one day I'm there, I can't really decide, not only that, but with Neptune in there, like not really understanding your worth, not really being able to validate yourself, which is just a huge entire theme of every bit of your chart, is being invalidated and being stepped on and being made to feel less important than you really are. And stuff like that. So that Neptune in the second house only adds a harder time, or a harder time owning your self-confidence. However, you do probably want to do something very creative and artistic, which talks a lot to that 12th house stuff, that Venus ruled moon and Mercury and stuff. But again, you need to feel confident putting yourself out there. Like maybe you're somebody who like paints it a lot, like all the time, and has all these amazing paintings, but like never puts them online, or like never shares them, or feels like nothing is ever good enough, like it's too much of a perfectionist, and so you just wind up kind of like keeping all these half finished things around, out of a fear. Yes. Let me see what else I wrote. um Oh, also something else that I feel like is very common with that double Taurus and your Venus retrograde and Scorpio in the 12th house, is staying with somebody because you said so. Like there can be a real stubbornness to Taurus, and you do have Taurus in the 7th house of relationships, and then you do have Lilith in Taurus, and Lilith and Taurus grabs onto things and hangs on for its dear life. And then with that Scorpio 12th house retrograde Venus, you just can be staying in relationships because you're like, I picked you, you're the one person that I want. And you can kind of feel like, I find this with Taurus a lot, like especially Taurus in the 7th house, it can feel like they've somehow failed themselves if they're not with the first person they picked. And you're probably somebody who thinks about that first person a lot, and if you're not with them, and you probably aren't, I have a feeling, because of all those Mars squares. I don't know why that makes me feel that way. I could be totally wrong. But if you aren't with them for forever, then you feel like you failed yourself. Or I feel like purity was a big thing that was kind of put onto you. You feel like you're not pure, judging yourself. Judging yourself from that perspective a lot. There was, and also, yeah, and also with that Libra moon, you probably are just feeling somebody who feels so lost without a relationship. And I have a feeling that's probably because you only feel seen when you're in a relationship, because then there's one other person that's kind of always around you and always seeing you. Whereas when you're not in a relationship, you probably feel very, very invisible, and that can feel very overwhelming. And you just kind of always need somebody to kind of bounce yourself off of, or judge yourself from, or just have somebody around to make it feel less scary, even to make it so you don't go into the recesses of your mind. And that can be kind of terrifying. It can kind of keep you out of that. So that can be another reason why you really hang on to relationships for quite a long time, is just because of that fear of being alone too. So I think that like your main, to summarize this really quick, like I think your main thing is just kind of owning and working through that Leo Aquarius interception, being comfortable being alone, being comfortable being independent, being yourself, putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way, and maybe making some mistakes. Like I feel like Scorpio can be so scared to put stuff out there because people will judge it or this and that. But you really have to let that go and realize that people aren't as important as you think they are. Their opinions really aren't. They're just thoughts. Just like how you think something about someone and then throw it out in a second, they do the same. And so just owning that Leo Aquarius interception, as far as like really working through the confidence, because I feel like you have a lot of natural talents and you are very naturally perceptive, like incredibly, and you're probably just willing to do things and go places that a lot of people aren't. And I think that's really awesome. And so just own it, own yourself, own your confidence, own that you're a badass bitch. Yes, so that is your full 60-minute reading. I really hope you enjoyed, and I really hope that it resonated. You're welcome to email me back with any comments or questions or whatever it may be, if you need me to elaborate on something more. If I tend to rush through descriptions of things, so I'm more than happy to elaborate more. if you have any questions. But again, thank you so much for your purchase. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate the support. And yes, thank you so much. Bye.